over 30 million records sold, the most photographed British star of the 80s, alongside Princess Diana and Margaret Thatcher. Not since the Beatles has a British personality been so well known internationally. But in the backdrop of her success were many challenges and secrets, one being her true sexuality. Though her provocative posters have covered the walls of thousands upon thousands of adolescent Gen Xer boys' walls, her true nature was a sapphic one. Growing up in Morgan Mansions and Crouch End in London, England, Samantha Fox, always affectionately known as Sammy, was a tomboy from the beginning. I was a typical tomboy, never wanted dolls or dresses for my birthday. I'd rather have football boots, footballs, or guns. In a way, I was the son Dad never had. In the 70s, around Christmas time, British schools competed for the best nativity play. The winner would get to be on TV when the BBC would broadcast the performance. In 1976, at age 10, Sammy's school won. Afterwards, when interviewed by a local newspaper and asked what she wanted for Christmas, I remember I said a crossfire game, one of those rapid-fire shootout games where you shot at one another with red plastic guns and small metal balls. Like I said before, I was a real tomboy, and when Dad gave me that game for Christmas that year, it was the best present I'd ever gotten. Another typically boyish thing I liked was making go-karts using wheels from discarded prams, with string to steer them. There was a long, steep slope not far from our house, and I used to ride the go-karts down it without being able to brake. I would later get an air pistol of my own, but I kept it secret from Mum and Dad. I never thought of using it to shoot anyone. I just messed around with it and played bullseye with metal cans. Though beautiful and petite, Samantha suffered from Perth's disease, which meant that one of her legs wasn't developing like it should. Because of this diagnosis, she had to wear calipers for 2 years and quickly became the brunt of a lot of bullying. However, no victim was she. Sammy recalls many instances in her childhood where her bullies received the full force of her tomboyish wrath. I got into fights pretty often, like the time a boy mocked me for my big shoe and then pushed me so I lost my balance. As soon as I got back onto my feet, I kicked him in the balls. Another time, there were 2 boys shoving me. I grabbed them both by the hair and held them away from me until a teacher came running. Mum looked at the teacher as we stood by her desk and said, "Surely she has to be able to do that. She was defending herself and being beaten by 2 boys." "Do you really think so, Mrs. Fox?" the teacher said, sounding outraged and pointing to the bin, which was full of large clumps of the boys' hair. And recalling another incident with a boy, Samantha said, "I'd recently been given both glasses and a brace, and I mentally prepared myself to be laughed at for it. But instead, he said, 'You look like a midget. I bet you're a midget.'" There was something in that boy's attitude that made my blood boil. From a young age, Dad had taught me how to defend myself. If someone hits you, you hit back even harder. That was his advice. And then he taught me how to box. He didn't even need to touch me. It was enough for him to repeat midget, for me to see black and throw myself at him. Mum looked out of the kitchen window to shout that dinner was ready, and saw me sitting on the boy's chest, hitting his face, which was now bleeding. Due to the fact she had no prior sexual experience with men before around age 18, Samantha began her adult life experimenting by dating men and having relationships with several of them. Her descriptions of her feelings towards these intimate encounters were a telltale sign that perhaps heterosexuality wasn't her fate. Once I became famous, the men I was with always thought they were going to bed with Samantha Fox, and I always felt like I had to step into that role, to perform in bed. I just didn't want whoever I was with to think I was a bad shag and pass that on. Many of the men I slept with also had really strange ideas about me and thought that the longer they could hold out, the better they were as a lover. So I quickly learned a lot about giving oral sex, since that was the quickest and simplest way of sorting things out. The problem was that I got so good at it that they fell even more in love with something I didn't enjoy that much. One of these early romantic relationships was with legendary Kiss member Paul Stanley. And though Paul might not exactly have been marriage material, he had slept with so many women that he really did know what he was doing. Looking back now, I can say that he was, without a doubt, one of the best male lovers I've ever had or will have. We had been seeing one another more and more sporadically over the last 6 months, and by the time I saw him coming towards me that morning with a big smile on his face, he had smoothly transitioned from being a boyfriend into a good friend. Coming to terms with her sexuality was a process, yet it was also something she was aware of for a long time. I had always been attracted to women ever since I was small. I got my first girlfriend when I was only 7. Her name was Donna, and we used to play doctors in the windy house at home. I was always the doctor, and she was the nurse. Later, I had a huge crush on Lindsay Wagner, the actress, and could hardly wait until Friday came round, when I would get to see her on TV. I was also in love with 2 of the teachers at school. Not that any of this was something I ever talked about, and since I was a virgin when I broke through as a model, I wasn't really clear about my sexuality. It all felt very confusing. I was so young that it was hard to know what was what. But despite that, Mum understood. Years later, when we finally talked about it, she just said, "I knew all along, Sammy. I knew all along." By the time I finally worked it out for myself, I remember being scared. Scared of what people would say, because I had so many male fans. And since I did sometimes get with girls, rumors about my sexual orientation started up early on in my career. There were always journalists calling up to ask whether I was with this person or that, but I always denied it. I honestly didn't dare do anything else. I mean, I was a former pinup girl and had absolutely no way of knowing how the truth would go down. It was around the time things started cooling down with Paul Stanley that Samantha became seriously involved for the first time with a woman who happened to be record label Jive's international manager. Since she's married with a family now, I'll call her Kat. If I'm completely honest, I don't actually think she was gay. She had never been with another woman before me, and she probably hasn't been since. Early that autumn, Kat flew to New York to look for an apartment for us. Those really were good times. Yes, there were moments when Kat and I clashed, often because of her jealousy, but I also felt more relaxed and free than I had in a long time. When I was with a woman, it was almost as though I didn't have to step into the role of Samantha Fox, either in bed or in my everyday life. Being myself was enough. Samantha's next serious relationship was with Chrissy Bonacci, the guitarist from the British rock band Girls' School. Chrissy came from a fairly strict Italian family and still hadn't come out as gay by that point in time. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, I was also keen for no one to know, and so we decided to keep our relationship a secret. The fact that we worked together meant it was possible. But it was after the relationship with Chrissy that Sam found her soulmate in Myra Stratton. Myra and I had a proper business meeting, and we decided that she would be my manager. We really tried to be professional about it, but at the same time, the sparks were flying between us. We were practically inseparable. We slept together every night, and she helped me to work out what I should do next in my career. Not long after the turn of the millennium, Sammy decided to come out. There had been plenty of rumors even while I was with Chrissy, and I now found myself frequently being asked about Myra. So, mostly in an attempt to stop all the speculation, I took the leap and told the truth. I can honestly say that it felt pretty horrible, but at the same time, it wasn't the 80's anymore. The world was moving forward, and other than a couple of indignant letters from hardcore male fans who'd followed me over the years, people seemed to take it pretty well. Tragically, after being together for 17 years, Myra died after a 2-year battle with angiosarcoma. Samantha honored Myra's last wish and scattered her ashes on an island in Thailand that she and Myra had visited many times before. 2 years after mourning Myra, Samantha fell in love with her current wife, Linda Olson, in 2017. The two share updates of their charmed life on Sammy's official Instagram page, and it seems as if Foxy Samantha has finally found true happiness. So, tell me, viewers, were you a sapphic girl growing up in the 80's, feeling like there were no beautiful queer women in pop culture? Would you have been so happy if Samantha had come out of the closet in the 80's as opposed to the 21st century? Please sound off in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and good night.